Hey there, everyone. Probably thought I was gone. I know it's been, I think, a couple months since I put a video up on my 944 Safari project. And I don't want you to think that because I haven't been putting any videos up, I haven't been doing any work. I've been kind of piecing together a lot of stuff for this thing in this last little bit of time. And I've been working little bits at a time when I can, when I get the opportunity to. So we're getting to a pretty big point with this car, and I kind of wanted to show you where we are on it. So first you see right here, the engine is actually all together. I did get this thing all rebuilt, all new bearings and everything. The only thing I didn't change were the rings, because they were a little bit on the loose side, but I didn't want to. I've heard it's tough with these alusil blocks, getting new piston rings to seal to an old bore, and I didn't want to send it out and have it honed or anything like that. So we're just running it with old rings, but it's got new bottom end, new seals on everything. Yeah, it should be good to go. It was kind of fun piecing this back together because, as you saw, this motor was never fully together. It was just a short block when I got it. So I had to dig through a bunch of boxes of stuff and bags of bolts and various brackets and things to put this fully back together. That took a little bit of time, but we got it. It should be good. I don't think it's going to immediately blow up, but we'll see what happens. So it's all back together and it is actually ready to go back in the car. So another thing that I did, it's winter's over now. It's May 2nd. So my gray car is back, my 85 944, that's back out of storage. I've been driving that a bit. So I did get new tires for the Safari project. So this thing sits nice and tall now. The front is obviously still high because there's no engine in it, but hopefully today we'll put the engine back in. So these tires that I got, they were just some really cheapos that I got off of, I got them on Walmart actually. They are Conforcer CF 1100. They're nice, all-terrain treads, kind of like a BFG knockoff. But the size on these is 215/75 R15. So they look really good on there, I think. They fill out the wheel wells nice. There we go. I think it looks pretty good. Gives it a nice ride height. I also washed the car. Well, because the car was sitting over here where I was doing a lot of the work on it. So yesterday my girlfriend helped me move it outside, move stuff around, pressure washed it off, got all my dirty handprints off of it because it's typical. Pressure washed it, actually scrubbed it down with some Simple Green. It looks not too bad, although I already put some dirty handprints back on it. I gave the engine bay just a quick wash, just blasted everything out, hit what I could with a scrub brush. It's not perfect. The car is not going to be perfect, but it's better than it was, so that's all that really matters. So I believe what you're probably going to see now is this right here going in there. This motor has never been in this car. This motor is actually a 85, model year 85. Car's an 83. The story that I got with the car and why the motor was out and it was taken apart is timing belt broke, smashed all the valves. They sourced this engine and I don't know, the car's been off the road since like '09. A lot of stuff's happened to it. I think someone like started parting the car out at one point, so they cut a bunch of wires and removed stuff, but we'll piece it back together good enough to get it back on the road and have some fun with it. So let's get after putting that guy back in. Well, it's a new day now. As you saw, tried to put the motor in, had my girlfriend come out and help me wiggle it around to try to manage to finagle it into the engine bay. But I do have the belt, clutch and bell housing and stuff on the motor, so it makes it a little bit bigger, dropping it through the top. It was a little challenging to get it down in, and then once we did get it into the engine bay, we found out it would not actually clear the torque tube shaft, the drive shaft for the torque tube. So I was out here in the shop till like 10:30 last night. I ended up taking the exhaust out, transmission out, and was able to slide the drive shaft back, or the whole torque tube assembly back, 3 or 4 inches, which should be enough to drop the motor down in now. I also ended up taking a whole bunch of stuff off while we were trying to drop the motor in that was already on the car, just to try to give a little bit more room. And I think all that will help. So we'll show you what we got here. So under the hood here, the exhaust manifold was in. That was in the way. We took that off, and then removing the transmission and all that stuff, I ended up just taking the rest of the exhaust right off. Unbolted the steering rack to drop that down, and also to take the steering shaft off so that could get out of the way. That helped a lot. But the main problem was the input shaft for the torque tube right there. This is with it slid back 3 to 4 inches, so I should have enough room for the bell housing to clear it, so I can drop it down, set it on the motor mounts, and then slide the torque tube in, ideally. It's tight with the hood latch and radiator support and stuff there to just drop it straight down in. You saw we kind of had to finagle it around, but the shop is sufficiently a mess. There's parts and tools and just stuff everywhere. You got transmission, transaxle out here. I'll probably change the oil in this while it's out, or at least drain it. Exhaust, I found that this pipe is actually cracked, and it's been welded before, but it's cracked right where it goes into the cat. So good to find that now so we can fix it. Transmission, I'll change the oil on that. And yeah, so with that torque tube slid back, I'm gonna set this thing back on the ground, pick the engine back up, and try to drop it in now and see what we get. Well, there it is. The motor is in. Bolts are in the motor mounts. They're still loose, but the torque tube is bolted up to the bell housing. You can just kind of see it down there. So this thing is in. I'll tighten up the motor mounts, and then we're gonna jack this thing back up and put the transmission back in. So I brought the front down a little bit, and the back is a little high because no transmission, obviously, but this is a little closer to the ride height, and this thing's gonna be sweet. So we'll go and wrestle the transmission back in here and be pretty good to go. So we'll get this thing back up in the air. All right, so transmission's back in. It's all hooked up. It was actually kind of funny. I forgot that with the motor in and the clutch in, I can't spin the torque tube anymore to line it with the transmission input shaft. And the coupler was kind of jammed in there, so I couldn't spin the transmission input shaft to line it up or to put the two pinch bolts back in the coupler. So amazingly, I hopped in the car just for the fun of it, pushed on the clutch pedal, went right to the floor immediately. I was like, the master cylinder, slave cylinder, something's bad on it. But I was actually able to pump it up, build pressure, and it worked. I jammed a broomstick in there on the seat, was able to spin the drive shaft to get the coupler lined up on the transmission and get that tight. So that's a pretty big win right there. The engine is in, transmission is in. They're both connected. Axles are in, reverse light wires in on the transmission. So we're in really good shape here. A lot of what this is going to be going forward is just putting the rest of the stuff back on the engine. Intake, exhaust. I got to put the steering rack, bolt that back to the cross member, a bunch of other little things like that. Wiring. I see there's been some hack jobs done on this engine wire harness, so that scares me a little bit, and it was unplugged from the computer inside, so I don't really know what's going on with that. I'm hoping that it'll be okay when I plug it all in, but that's something for a future day. So I think I'm gonna stop this video here. I'm gonna keep working a little bit. Oh yeah, I wanted to show. I got so this is a manual manual steering car. So there's no power steering because this is safari car, rally car. I'm not gonna hook up the AC in it. So I've got a used Lindsay Racing aluminum AC delete bracket. So we'll be putting that on. So the only thing that's going to be driven off the crank is the alternator, and that'll be good. Less stuff taking more power. So we're getting there. Yeah, it's getting exciting. So stay tuned. We'll have more coming, and we'll see you in the next one.